Start with the pledge of allegiance. Please, all you have is this flag is over here. And we will ask, the register of deeds of the Kathy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Clerk, may read the notice to me.
Notice is hereby given that a public meeting of the Strafford County Delegation Executive Committee is scheduled to be held Friday, April 26, 2024 at 9 a.m. This meeting will require a physical quorum, but will provide remote access for the public and will be held as noted above in the cafe conference room, lower level of the William A. Grimes Justice and Administrative Building, 259 County Farm Road, Dover, New Hampshire. Conduct the following business. Approve the minutes of the executive committee meeting on March 1st, 2024. Approve second round of tax anticipation note borrowing up to 20,290,000 for 2024. Review and approve first quarter 2024 budget reports. Approve distribution of previously approved salary schedules for the union contracts and non-union agreements to the appropriate budgetary line item as per document entitled Strafford County 2044 line item transfers. Any other business which may legally become before the committee.
Thank you very much. And then we call
Bailey,
President.
Burnham,
Here.
Harrington,
Here.
Corrigan,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
and Newton,
Yeah.
Potenza,
Here.
Rich.
Here.
Southworth,
Here.
Wall. Here. And Schmidt.
Here. Very good. We have a quorum. And Kelly, do we have anybody on the Zoom?
No.
Okay, then let's proceed with item 6, approving minutes of the executive committee meeting of March 1st, 2024. Is there a motion on that? Representative Wall?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes of the executive committee meeting of March 1st, 2024.
Thank you very much. Second by Representative Howard. Is there corrections, emendations, deletions, what have you? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And item 7, approve second round of tax anticipation note borrowing of up to $20,290,000 for 2024. And I recognize the county treasurer for her recommendations.
I'd like to, excuse me, I'd like to recommend that we borrow $20,290,000 for the year of 2024, and we will be paying this back at the end of December.
There are the questions of the treasurer. Representative Harrington.
I assume this is the anticipated amount that we planned on borrowing all along. This is no increase or decrease. Okay, thank you.
You're on track.
Okay. Case, we may proceed. I think it's a roll call vote, of course, so you call roll, please.
Bailey,
Aye.
Burnham,
Aye.
Harrington,
Yes.
Corrigan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
yes, Newton,
Yes.
Penza,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Southworth,
Yes.
Wall,
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
13-0.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Item 8 is review and approve first quarter 2024 budget report. Just going to speak to that, Raymond, or
It's on target. for the, first quarter. Jail revenue's a little low, however, I'm sorry if I'm blocking something. Jail revenue's a little low, but it's not unusual for it to be low in, January, February, March. We're looking at April's numbers. I know April's not quite done, but looking at April's numbers, we're back on track. And it's a little deceptive. I need to own up to an error. The bottom line doesn't change, but there's an error in the placement of $200,000 in the revenue line. It should not be in miscellaneous revenue. It should be in a revenue line item. Called Medicaid Special Care Unit, SBU. It should be $200,000 more. And the miscellaneous income should be $81,698. And the 200 should be added on to the other unit. That's money that the state has paid us for running our behavior unit.
Okay,
My responsibility, it went in the wrong line item. Doesn't change the amount, just went in the wrong line item.
I understand. Are there any ramifications from this? It's just a temporary clerkish type of error.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want people to be surprised in the next quarter when they say, geez, it said 281,000 and now it says 81,000. The 81,000, by the way, just as an answer for one of the people who have attended the meeting, is the reimbursement that we received from our insurance company regarding our past employee who's now in jail. That's the reimbursement.
Other question?
No, looks like comment. Thank you for mentioning that because that was gonna be my question.
Yeah, we received, we actually
Thank you
received,
for that.
if you followed it in court, Representative Newton, you see that she was only charged with taking
Right,
72.
you had mentioned that there was approximately 80,000
Yeah.
reimbursement.
Then I won't go over it again.
And
Yeah,
that was gonna be my question. Thank you for clarifying that.
yeah, that's that 81,000 and we received the check from.
You're reading my mind.
Okay, well. Nice.
But, yeah, that's the 81,000.
Okay, you say there are no ramifications, it just has
No.
to be corrected, which you.
And the bottom line, we don't need to, I just didn't want the
No,
executive
you-
committee to look in the second quarter and say, wait a minute, there was 281,000 here last time and now there's only 81. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, it's important that be correct and that be noted.
Yeah, further, while I think of it, you mentioned that the revenues are down just a little. You don't perceive that as being any problem. Could you explain why you think they're down or?
Superintendent Brackett can answer better than I, he's right here.
You mind answering?
No, not at all.
No, please.
Good morning. The reason why the revenues are down are largely driven by our ICE population. So in the month of March, we went through an inspection and I'm happy to report to the executive committee that we excelled during our inspection. And I can go into that in more detail if somebody is interested. But traditionally, what they do before our inspection is they take some of the population out. Some of that is due to the beginning of deportation. Some of that is due to population management. And so in the prior months before the inspection, we had our population dip with ICE to the tune of about between 26 and 34, varying throughout the day. I'm happy to report today we have 96 ICE detainees in custody, which is not to say that I'm happy they're in custody. I'm happy to tell you that the ICE operation, who places high custody offenders in our facility, which are those that are either committed, that have been convicted of a crime or have been accused of what they classify as a violent crime, those numbers have gone down. Throughout my meetings with the commissioners, I report what our daily population is for the federal partners that we board with. Today it's 210, which exceeds the number that we're required to do for our hitting our mark month to month. And I suspect that April is gonna reflect that we exceed our what we anticipate. So, that is one of the main reasons why, but, Mr. Bauer's point, we traditionally see a population that drops both a little bit in November and December, and then as it starts to build up, it's kind of a slow build up through the first quarter. So that's my justification for why that population is down. I can also tell you that I have had pretty frank conversations with our operational team that says, hey, listen, we're a facility that partners with the Marshal Service for Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, as well as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and our doors are open. We have had to manage our population primarily with ICE because of litigation that happened during COVID. And so we have had a paradigm shift where we manage that population in a much different way, which is to say that our doors are open, we have vacant beds, you're welcome to utilize those while still adhering to our county obligations with local arrests that come into the facility.
Have a question, Kelly?
Yeah, you go first.
Well, it's not on this subject, I just other budgets issues, so.
So are we the ICE detention center for, in a sense, all of New England or just for all of New Hampshire? And can I kind of understand that a little bit?
Sure, so there's no other facility in New Hampshire that houses ICE detainees for the duration of time that we do, which is to say that we have contracted with the Department of Homeland Security to be a housing facility for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There are other facilities that do in fact house immigration detainees for no more than 96 hours, so they can arrange transport and placement into a facility that is contracted with Department of Homeland Security. We are not the only place in New England that does that. Plymouth County does it. Bristol County did for some time, and although and Wyatt Detention Facility down in Rhode Island does it as well. But we are the primary location to house ICE detainees in the northern part of New England, if you will.
Further questions? I mean, I think this is very important that we understand this, so I'm glad you're how we're not running late, so we can explore as much as the delegation for the executive committee wants. That's sort of question.
Yeah, just one quick question. So all of the funding for that is coming in from the federal government. So they're paying for every slot in a sense, correct?
They pay us a daily bed rate for every occupied bed of $100 per day. In addition to that, they compensate the county for transportation of those inmates from one location to another, whether that's down to immigration court, moving them back and forth from Burlington when they're brought into the facility, when they're taken into custody and then brought to our facility, or if they leave our facility and they go to Burlington. In addition to that, some of that reimbursement that we see has to do with taking them out to local doctor's appointments or the hospital, and that's a way in which we get reimbursed by the federal government, by Department of Homeland Security for those operations.
Yeah, Representative Yu?
Just one further question. Are things finally starting getting back to normal from COVID?
Yes, they are. It's a slow and arduous task. While the discussions are still confidential in nature, I can share with you that we are trying to come to a resolution with the litigation that was filed on behalf of the ACLU for those that are in custody for ICE related to the tinderbox scenario, and I put air quotes because that's what they said, and that people were going to die when they were in custody. Now, I will say that at the time that was said, we didn't know what COVID was. I'm happy to report that no one did die as it relates to COVID or any complications related to COVID at the Department of Corrections. And so we have actively worked with the ACLU through the U.S. Attorney's Office to end this litigation, and I have been strongly advocating for the ruling of deliberate indifference that was initially awarded against Strafford County, for that to be vacated. Because I don't believe that we were deliberately indifferent. I believe that we did everything that we could with the knowledge that we had as we navigated through the COVID process so that we could keep everybody everybody safe that's in custody. Now, I can tell you that some of those operational processes that were implemented by ICE, we utilize throughout, for everybody inside the facility. And so it made our facility operate in a safer manner. That being said, we're actively working to try to get that last hurdle. And that once that last hurdle is overcome, I think that I could come in here and represent to the executive committee that we are back to normal operations. There are some things that I have to still do. I have to report to the court about how many tests we do inside our facility. I have to do those tests because I'm required to ensure that we're not introducing anybody into the facility that's COVID positive. If we do that, then we can isolate those individuals. And that's what the intent of the procedure that was instituted by the courts or agreed to and supported by the courts to make sure that we keep everybody safe inside our facility.
Thank you.
I just two quick things to add. The suit's not against Strafford County. Okay, so Strafford County has no exposure in the suit. We don't litigate the suit. It's not our insurance company. It's the ACLU suing the federal government. We just happen to be, a testifier in the suit because we hold the inmates. So I just didn't want you to think there's any exposure on behalf of the county. What we're just trying to do is navigate through the processes that have been established all across the United States by, different various legal entities. In our case, it's the ACLU to mitigate or COVID at the time. And now because COVID really doesn't exist, it's kind of been put on the back burner. But Judge McCafferty has pushed it along. So we're hoping to get that resolved quite quickly.
Before you sit down, follow up,
Sure, of course.
could you expound on the county, you were the commissioners of the county level of how you recovered from all the COVID issues you've had to deal with? And are you guys getting back to somewhat near normal?
Somewhat near normal. I mean, we're still being cautious. We're still testing, new residents to Riverside. We're still COVID testing. We haven't had any COVID. We had some in the fall. We haven't had any this year. Although it's interesting, since 2019, we haven't had any flu, and we did have 3 cases of flu this year. But that was in January, and we haven't had any since. We're pretty aggressive about using a product called Tamiflu, where we use Tamiflu on the resident that is diagnosed, on their roommate, and on their bathroom mates. That way it stops if there is any, we get the floor. And if there's any spread, of course, it mitigates it right away. By immediately starting the use of Tamiflu. And Tamiflu is a medication that has literally no side effects. So it doesn't hurt that we distribute Tamiflu prophylactically. We don't wait for symptoms. We give it as at the very same time we're giving it to the person that has the flu diagnosis.
With grandkids, that might be a good idea for me to have some of that in my medicine cabinet.
You can, I'm sure next time you visit your physician, you can ask them. One thing about Tamiflu is have very long shelf life. So you can acquire it and it has at least a 2-year shelf life. So, if flu, again, it seems to have bypassed us this year where we would be at the tail end of what would be a normal flu situation like we had before 2019. We had purchased some Tamiflu because we were afraid it was gonna run out. So back then we did, we haven't recently. But you can, long shelf life, throw it in your medicine cabinet. And I'm sure your physician would order it for you. I have some.
Is it an expensive,
No, it's a relatively insignificant it's a relatively insignificant cost.
represent potential?
Just one last question, and maybe you could just direct me where the numbers are. I don't know, do you report on a regular basis, basically? So, you know, how many, in a sense, how many cells or beds are open at the prison? How many are occupied, all that, not just in relation to ICE, but just in relation to numbers? Like, where are we at right now at capacity? Like, are we at 70% capacity? Is that information, like, does the public have access to that? Is that something, because I'm kind of actually interested in numbers out there.
Sure, so the public does have access to that. I will tell you that this morning we have 314 in custody. And our reported bed space is 495. Now, I think it's important to just kind of explain a little bit about that number of 495. It's not just as easy as taking in 495 people that are in custody. I have classification issues that I have to address. I have charges that I have to address. I have security threat affiliations that I have to address. So I would have to have the perfect storm of people that came in that had crimes against children, just that amount, and then high custody versus medium custody. So it's very hard for me to achieve that 495 bed number. But that's the number that I put on all of the surveys that I'm asked, because that's the capacity that the jail could possibly provide.
But you'd also have to have all the staff, you'd have to have all the things perfect to be able to even have that.
You're absolutely
So if
correct.
you're 20% down in staff, you're obviously not able to have 495.
Well, the nice thing about, the nice thing about our staffing profile is that the building was built around staffing. So basically, I have one housing unit that can house 72 inmates. So if I have 26 inmates in there, which I don't, I have 67 in that unit, I have one officer in there. If I have 72 inmates in there, I have one officer in there. So, when the facility was designed, it was designed as it relates to staffing, because that's where your costs come from over a 20-year period. Like, you build your building, and that's an initial cost, but then the operational costs primarily come from staffing. And so we built the building, and I say we, meaning not necessarily me, because it was designed and built just as I was getting to the facility. But that's how it was built, so that it would have a minimal amount of operational impact to the county over the duration of time that the building is utilized. So we are in need of staff, and if I had more staff, perhaps I might be able to operate in a different manner, but I'm not operating in an unsafe manner right now. I'm just operating in a manner where I have a lot of overtime, driven by our staffing profile, to be able to keep the place safe, running it the way that it's supposed to, with a minimal amount of staff, which impacts the overall bottom line of the operation.
As you probably know, we have men and women, so obviously
Yeah.
you have to bear that in mind.
I'm happy to give you additional information if you're looking for, and I can give you my business card. We can certainly converse about what our numbers are, how I report those numbers, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it'd be great. We're of course, in Concord right now. There's money that the bills are going through for several $1 million to expand, as you probably know, the prison in Concord. And so, but for the last few years, I have a few friends that work there, and what they're doing to try to get more correctional officers in with bonuses and that structure. They even had, booths set up at a fair, and I just don't know, is that for all the correctional officers, or is it just specifically for that county that they're doing that?
So the counties are autonomous. So when they do, if Hillsborough County, for example, goes to a job fair, they're advertising for
Just for
Hillsborough
them,
County.
yeah.
The
that's what I
state
thought.
prison is going, it's just for the
Just
state
for the
prison.
state prison.
And we participate in some of those behaviors as well. Over at UNH, we've done
Yeah.
that. And I was just speaking with a colleague in Cumberland County, and he was talking about some of the ways in which they were trying to attract staff, because this is not specific to
No,
Strafford
it's
County, it's
everywhere.
specific to the job itself.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
That's, when you ask the question about, is it for everybody, it's for those specific operations.
Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Southwood.
I just wanted to say thanks. I think, even though I've heard it before, having the overview and then the specific details is really helpful when talking to the public and so on, because it's easy for things to get, kind of off. So glad you asked that. So I think it's really helpful information.
Absolutely. The one other thing that I'll tell you is that every couple of weeks, my classification department does send out a high-risk inmate document to the sheriff's department, to myself and some other members at the facility. And we received one on Tuesday. On Tuesday, there were 17 people that were on that list, and of the 17, 6 were ICE detainees, wanted for murder in other countries. So if it's represented that we're just housing people that are there because they don't have proper documentation, that's not the case. I said that I would house those people at our facility if ICE was willing to participate in a pathway to citizenship, the legal pathway to citizenship. And they haven't been able to provide that, so we don't have low custody offenders in our facility right now.
So is that like a catch and release then?
Not necessarily catch and release. What it would be is that they're taken into custody, and then we establish a method in which it's clearly outlined what they're required to do, how either Strafford County and or primarily Immigration and Customs Enforcement would assist them in getting to those various different benchmarks so that they could become citizens of the United States.
Morgan, did you have any?
I guess I did, I got way off.
Okay. We're good. Anything further?
Yeah, down to you, or to the commissioners, or?
I'll just throw it out and somebody will jump in.
I've been reading that there's some pretty good regulations coming down from the feds dealing with nursing homes. I think additional registered nurses, you're gonna require more time, more, even things as simple as gowns are gonna, expenses. Is that something you think you've got a handle on, or is there anything we have to look ahead to do, and does it take effect soon?
No, well, it's a two-part question. Let me talk about the enhanced barrier protection first, which is the gowns. It's a little more than gowns. It's literally, well, we always wear gloves, but it's booties, it's, hats and glasses and the whole bit.
Can they be reused, or do you
No.
throw
No.
away?
No. So here's what happened. In 2022, yes, 2022, the CDC came out with recommendations for enhanced barrier protections, gowns, gloves, well, I said gloves, but entire protection for people that are colonized with certain potential serious infections. Now, they're not they're infected in the sense, but it's under control. It's colonized. Their own body immune system covers that.
Like sepsis?
No, sepsis would be even further than that. So we've been waiting since 2022 to see if CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid, it was going to impose any sanction or any requirements on nursing homes. They didn't until March 20th. They put out, in fact, I was gonna ask to meet with the Riverside Subcommittee to brief them, but I might as well brief all of you while you're here. In March 20th, they came out with the enhanced barrier precautions. We met as an internal department, and we've identified about 21 people, some of which are colonized, but some of which have other areas like post-surgery open area that, we're healing, or perhaps an open, even something as minor as an open foot blister, as an example, but it's open. Would need at least a Band-Aid or some other kind of coverage. All of those people, even though they're not infected, we still need to wear enhanced barrier precautions when we go in and treat those people. It's 21, well, today it's 21, tomorrow could be 19 or 23. And we, keep a track on that every single day. And we we have a little color code system because we don't want anybody walking by the room to, have an indication that there might be some illness that they have concern about. We've notified the families, and we've begun, and they gave us 10 days to start it. So they sat on it for 2 years, and then they made us start at April 1st. Well, I can tell you, we didn't start at April 1st. We started at April 15th. That was as quick as we thought we could accurately put it together. We are waiting for the Department of Health, who supposedly is going to be giving us a full briefing, because there's certain nuances. As an example, if someone has a catheter, now we don't have many catheters in the facility, but if somebody has a catheter, if an aide empties a catheter bag, do they need to gown up? That's kind of an outstanding, and it might sound oversimplified, but it's an outstanding question. So what I've suggested is, the commissioners were kind enough to change their meeting date so that I could, participate in a meeting of the 11 county nursing homes. And I've suggested that the director of nurses and the infection control nurses, all of which are required by Medicaid, you have to have those people, get together and meet as a group to gather their questions, so that when the Department of Health gives the presentation, we'll have unified questions to be able to ask. There's strength in numbers. The counties are about 35 to 40% of, certainly a lot more of the Medicaid population, but they're about 35 or 40% of the total nursing home population in the state of New Hampshire. So I would like for us to have the same or very similar policies. Secondarily, I reached out to the Healthcare Association, which represents the balance of the 71 other nursing homes that aren't county nursing homes. And I've suggested to Brendan Williams, who's the head of that we also, once the counties get our act together, that we unify with the Healthcare Association so that we all have the same or similar policies. Because we're all going to be reviewed on these policies by state surveyors. Our state survey, fortunately, was in December. So we're going to have, pretty much 9 months to be ready, and a lot of word from other county homes about how this was interpreted by the state. But we're trying to do that. So that's the enhanced barrier protection. Secondarily, the vice president, in this case, issued long-awaited staffing recommendation, well, not recommendations, staffing mandates for nursing homes. Now, they're either 1 year or 2 years out. Even though I think we live in a rural area, the feds seem to think we live in an urban area. So we are the 1 year, not the 2 year. I had, the counties created a formula so that we could implement that, and at this point, we're fine. So we should be okay. Obviously, that's another thing that'll be clarified. It depends on, the number of residents you have, the number of staff you have. Some of the things that are concerns to other counties, particularly the smaller counties in the northern and western part of the state, and I guess I never realized this, is that they don't have an RN 24 hours a day. We've always had an RN 24 hours a day in my whole 37 years there. So, and we also have the fact that we have Hyder, also provides us some additional RN coverage, because Hyder's considered part of Riverside. So we should be okay. Although, we're constantly watching it, because as you know, the feds have a habit sometimes of changing their rules midstream. So we're kind of constantly watching it.
Representative,
Yeah, just to follow up, and thank you for answering that. I was just gonna ask the question about the new rule, the 24-hour RM, but it sounds like we got that covered.
Yeah, we have an RN supervisor all shifts anyway.
But as far as the nursing home goes, I noticed the overtime for is 41%, which is well above a quarter. And the reason is stated as nursing shortages. So is there any type of a long-term plan? I mean, I realize there's the shortage of nurses everywhere, but do we have any type of a plan where we're saying this is, or at least we're gonna have a plan for trying to get more nurses?
In this case, it's actually aides more than nurses. Nurses were in really good shape, believe it or not. And I think a good part of that is the way in which the ARPA funds were used back 3 years ago. That we used it to supplement salaries. And that put us into a good shape for nurses. if you look at the top lines in the budget, you'll find that they're pretty close. It's aides and overtime that puts us in a bad spot. We are relooking at our staffing, and I think you'll see as the year progresses that the percentage of overage will begin to decrease.
Okay, and just another follow-up on that.
Sure.
It also says, and I just don't know what this means. It says raises paid before salary transfers were complete.
When the delegation approved the budget, you approved salaries in lump sums. Because all of the salaries at Riverside minus 2% were covering the money that ARPA used to pay out in supplemental pay and turning it into county expense. So we didn't stop, normally we don't start the raises till the budget's approved. In this case, we were simply continuing what was in
Using
place.
ARPA money.
Exactly.
That answers my question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of minor questions on the budget. One of them just a curiosity more than anything else. I think the first one I have on page 13, it talks about resource agencies. And this explanation, I don't quite understand. It's that nothing has been spent. And it says payments made for billings after final budget approval will not exceed budgeted amounts. Is this something we just get one bill at the end of the year?
No, sir. But we don't execute contracts with them until the delegation approves the budget.
Yeah.
As soon as the delegation approves the budget, we execute a contract. Now, that contract is not the amount divided by 12. They have to provide the service for which the funding was authorized. So the contracts are going back and forth right now. And then they can back bill us till January and then bill us monthly, as long as they meet what they proposed when they put the budget together.
So at the end of the year, we'd expect like Meals on Wheels, we would spend the 42,000.
I would expect so, because Meals on Wheels had indicated to us when they came in, they indicated to the subcommittee and to the commissioners that, they're running a real tight ship. We did tell them, please don't leave someone unfed. That we would approach the executive committee if it was gonna be somebody shut off from
We
Meals
should
on
expect
Wheels.
the next quarter, there'll be some charges.
Yeah, guaranteed. Guaranteed.
One final one. This is a minor one, but on page 20, it talks about overtime for RH, the maintenance. And it's 68%, which is pretty high. And the explanation is staff relocate allocation to cover unplanned absences, projects requiring after-hour services, which I can understand, and plowing in winter weather response. Now, this particular winter, January through the end of March, was pretty mild. It didn't have much snow at all. So why should we need overtime to cover snow on a very low snow winter?
Sure. Doug, do you want to answer that? Sure. Doug's our director of maintenance for the complex. Good morning.
Come on over here, Doug, so Michael can see you.
Good morning, everyone. The storms that we had this year were unique in nature. I believe if you remember, we had snow and then it was freezing and then it was pouring rain. So we had a lot of flooding. I had to call in guys after hours to cover the jail. We had to put sandbags up on the roof because of the sustained winds.
Not the last storm, but the one before that, when we had all the freezing
There were
rain.
several, honestly. Yeah, there were several. We have it in our logbook as far as pulling in people for, we keep a log of everything for the insurance company to show how much sand we put
So
down.
winter weather response could have been rain, that's what you're saying. Okay, I think that-
Primarily it was rain, yeah. There wasn't much snow totals, but unfortunately what it did is it dammed up a lot of the drainage. It dammed up the drainage out back here and we had flooding again here in the basement. We've since taken steps to mitigate that and going forward with some of the plans, we're gonna do some drainage this spring once the weather warms up and we'll get that taken care of.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. Doug,
On that?
Representative Harrington. Representative.
Yes, and first we'll also we had some overtime for the April storm, which actually took place.
Sure,
Well,
yeah.
definitely, let's see some.
Yeah, it was a unique year this year, and I think going forward with it being milder winters like we've seen, we won't have the, 1.5 to 2 feet of snow, but we'll have these freak storms that come up and cause all sorts of damage. So our crew is working ahead of time to try to see where these problems are at and get the drainage taken care of so we can get the water away from the buildings and we won't have any more issues like that.
And just
We're good.
one overall comment, I'm glad to see that the budget is in budget. Thank you. I know everyone works hard to do that, so. And again, just across the board, everything's as
Good.
planned, so.
Everybody good with any further questions? Thank you very much, and thank you for your labor.
Thank you.
To keep the weather under control
Thanks for my question.
on the middle. Okay, so Representative Newton.
Yes, I was watching the commissioner meeting, one of the recent ones. And it was stated that there was an extensive audit done. Something to do with the workers, and the results were very favorable. Could you talk to us about that for a couple
Sure.
minutes?
I wish I could tell you what the initials stand for, but we call it the peanut butter and jelly audit. It's PBJ.
Okay,
And what it is,
Good, funny.
if you look at Riverside Rest Home or any nursing home in New Hampshire, and you looked at it on the CMS website, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid website, you can look under a topic called Nursing Home Compare. And that compares all the nursing homes in the area on a five-star system. That five-star system is broken down into 3 parts. It's broken down, one part is survey and certification, meaning how you did on your last survey. Or actually, that's not true, how you did on your last 3 years surveys. But as you go back, the surveys become less weighted. You know, in year 3 and year 2, it's less than the current year. The second part is they look at the residents that you take and they make certain assumptions based on a checklist of physical attributes of that resident. The third part is staffing. So what we have to report every month to the federal government is every person that worked, how many hours they worked, and in what capacity. So if you're a nurse, if you're an administrator, if you're a doctor, we have to submit all of that. We were chosen for a random audit on that report to verify with payroll records the stuff that we reported. Now, it doesn't sound complicated. You're talking thousands of pages of documents because we're actually talking about sending payroll sheets, bank statements, canceled checks, all of that to the feds. So the 2.5 part-time or 2.5 full-time equivalent employees that work in that department at the nursing home had to get, besides their regular work, had to gather all of that stuff up. And if they were missing this piece of paper or that piece of paper, they had to send it again. And what you saw was the results of that audit, that we were right on target, which was a Herculean effort. First of all, it's a Herculean effort to do it. But second of all, it's a Herculean effort to have everything match up. Because they looked at a year. But that then verifies the star system. So it's a double check. We just luck of the draw. I talked to the other county homes and none of them have ever had it before but us.
and the results were favorable.
They were great. They were great. I'm happy to, I was so proud of the staff, but it's got nothing to do with me. They do it, I don't. That I wanted to bring them into the commissioners so that the commissioners could recognize the work they did.
And and that's the audit, there was an audit, like last month, I think, right? That's a different audit.
Well, the audit last month was the beginning of our financial audit for last year.
Right.
That was when they were here for 2 weeks. And during COVID, we used to send them a lot of stuff. Now that COVID's gone, they came out here for, although wouldn't you know it, one of the weeks they came out, one of their employees had COVID. But the 2 weeks that they did come was the start. It's where they check things. Like, obviously this year they checked every credit card bill, as you might expect.
I don't know why that happened.
Yeah, I don't know, as an example. But I mean, they also randomly pull various invoices probably a third of our invoices or more, to compare the invoices to, you know, the checks that were sent and how they were cashed, and to make sure we had, the 1099 forms. You know, we have to issue 1099 statements to vendors. They wanted to make sure all the 1099 forms were done up by the vendor and approved by me. You know, so it's all that kind of laborious stuff that 3 of them were here for 2 weeks. Now they're back in the office, crunching the numbers.
Right, and when do we expect that result?
Well, we expect that result, we at least got the documents for Riverside so that we could file the Riverside cost report, which is due March 31st. So we got like a financial statement, but we won't have a full audit till May, or maybe at the beginning of June. We have another cost report due on our Medicare. Now, we only have a very small handful of Medicare clients. So we can do what's called a short form. But in order to do that short form, we need the audit information. So I expect, we're hoping to get that by the end of May, so we don't have to file for an extension on our Medicare cost report, which is another one that's due.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Any members? Okay, so I'm blanking on whether we need a roll call on approving this. Right?
You do not.
I didn't think so, but always better to ask. Okay, very good. So we have no further questions. Is there a motion to approve? I have Representative Wall, seconded by Representative Harrington. Okay, sorry, what?
I was gonna read the motion, you already mentioned it, so. Okay.
Well, please read the motion. You have a prepared motion, you want to hear it.
Okay, I move we approve the second round of tax anticipation note borrowing up to $20,290,000.
We already did that.
Yeah, we did that one.
We already did that one. We're on the next one. We're on the budget.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Number 8.
I'm wrong.
This is,
I'm wrong on
this
that.
is to approve.
Approve and accept the first quarter
Okay.
budget for.
We're now acting on item 8, review and approve. Okay, so, further questions, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that's unanimous, thank you. And item 10, any other business which may legally come.
Number 9.
Oh, sorry. After all these years, it's still slightly. No, I'm sorry. That was item 8. Now, item 9, approve distribution of previously approved salary schedules for the union contracts and non-union agreement to the appropriate budgetary line items per document entitled Strafford County 2024 line item transfer. And who's going to speak to that?
I'm happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
This is
please.
the,
Come over so we can.
fortunately, all of, when you all voted on the budget, all the union contracts had been settled.
Right.
The,
And you informed us of that.
right, and so we were able to calculate the cost of each one of those contracts prior to make sure that the right numbers were put in the budget. Basically, as I'd mentioned earlier, the ARPA money that was given to Riverside, which is the same ARPA money that actually was given to the jail, was built into salaries, and Riverside got 2%. The courthouse, all non-Riverside and non-jail got 3%. The jail got 3%. And we'll be getting a 4% adjustment in July. And again, this is an effort to attract, additional help. The commissioners took the money where they felt the greatest need was, and that's the way it's settled. So all in all, if you think about it on an annual basis, the jail ended up getting 5%. So it's 2% for Riverside, 3% for everybody but the jail and the nursing home. And then ultimately 5% for the jail, getting 3% in the first half of the year and 4% in the second half, which comes out to 5 total.
Right, stay right there. You heard Superintendent Backer earlier talk about the fact that he would do a little bit more or do it differently if he had more personnel. So talk to us about personnel situation in general, if you will.
It's a constant battle.
Oh, sure, people.
Not unique to us. I think everybody, all the other counties, all the cities and towns, anybody that's looking for police officers. Fortunately, the thing that saves us is we're one county. Meaning that we can work cooperatively with the sheriff's department and with community corrections and the jail. And that's a help to us. The commissioners made an investment in nursing before it was high status to make those investments, meaning 3 years ago, when we focused the ARPA money on enhancing nursing. So let me just give you one example with a neighboring county. I spoke to Jason Smith from Rockingham County. He's the nursing home administrator from Rockingham County. Rockingham County finishing their fiscal year, June 30th, will have spent just in excess of $10 million in pool nursing and travel nurses. We don't use travel nurses at all.
This came up in the subcommittee, by the way.
Yes, it did.
For those of you who are on the
Okay,
subcommittee.
and then-
But not everybody has heard this, so this is important to understand.
And then and I called him one day for something or another, and he said half his staff were not his staff, but were, staff that were acquired from either a pool or thing. So we used our ARPA funds to solidify our employees. I have the greatest respect for pool nurses and pool aides, but they don't know the residents. There's no continuity because you could have one nurse working one day and you could have another nurse working the next day, or you could have a travel nurse working for 3 months and then they're gone. You'll never see them again because they're back home or in some other part of the
I
country.
had one from Alabama when I was in the hospital last year.
So the commissioners focused, the assets that came from ARPA in order to stabilize our workforce, and we're seeing the benefit of that at Riverside. And, we are continuing to push for the House of Correction.
Very good, thank you. Questions, Representative Potenza?
So, talking about line 9 here, is this the, when we were, well, it first got introduced here in our last executive meeting, and then it was, at our full delegation meeting. Does this incorporate that chart of all that extra money for those salary positions? County attorney, all of that?
Yes, it does. In fact, we met with the county attorney, who had been out having a wonderful baby. And she returned this week and we met to distribute those amounts, with her on Wednesday. She'd been out for some weeks, having her child.
Okay, Representative Harris.
Just a question, this is sort of more of a process question. Since the budget was already approved with those salary increases in them, which I thought were kind of excessive, but that besides that, it's been approved. So what exactly are we approving here? Approving the approval?
No, you're approving the distribution of those into the respective line items. So that when you look at the budget in the second quarter, the money will be in the line item and you can make a better judgment about if a line item's overspent or not.
And if we don't approve this, what happens?
It just sits there.
But they still get paid?
Yeah, that's our
So
union
this is-
contract.
This is, I'm especially talking about the non-union ones, but this is basically a bookkeeping
Yes, sir.
thing. It doesn't increase or decrease spending. It's just moving it from one line item to the other.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, that's fine.
And this is something that's been done for quite a while.
Every year that, as far back as I can remember, Representative Newman.
All right, thank you.
Okay, further questions? Representative Southwood.
Probably everyone saw this, but they recently printed the higher salaries in Rochester and Dover and so on. There were loads of them over 100,000. And again, I think the average person would think they were high. But also, I think it shows the context that we're working in, that, people in leadership and higher level positions all around us, the pay is getting quite high. And, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that reality has been in the paper specifically for Rochester and Dover. So if you haven't seen those, you might find them interesting. When you're also looking at the county. That's-
And just to add to that, the county has that in your information, you have the salaries of all the people accounting. So,
We posted it on the website.
yeah, if you people don't know that, you can go and find that too, so.
Yeah, when we
We got ahead of it.
we try to get out ahead of it so that when
been on
Foster's
for a
or
while.
whoever, yeah. So when Foster's or whoever calls, we try and send it out when we send out the W-2s. Cause we're like right in the middle of that. So it seems to me that that's the appropriate time just to put those wages. Unfortunately, we have a really old, our system, our accounting system has been here longer than me. I mean, yes, we've continued to update it, but I've been here, well, just short of 38 years.
Now, you've been here since Gordon was a little boy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I hope to be here a few years longer. So but our accounting system is that old. And I've talked to the accounting systems are tremendously expensive. Tremendously expensive. So we've managed to get upgrades to our accounting system so that it functions, because it's kind of an odd system. It's a cash-based system and it's an accrual-based system at the same time. So it's a unique system that would be very expensive to replace. So it's easier for us to print that at the time we do the W-2s. We can't simply, like probably Dover, Rochester, Somersworth, and maybe other places, push a button and get the information. It's just not that simple. So we do it, that's probably why it's out earlier than anybody else's.
Good. Yeah, just one more thing. The IT system has improved tremendously at county level with the information, the videos, being able to get them. And I would actually, if you have time as fellow representatives, there's a lot of information at the commissioner meetings. And the volume is good. You can hear it, you can see it. It's rather enlightening to see what the county is up to and all the things they have to go through to run the county. And I've been watching them because they're easy to get to, it's easy to access, and it's not difficult to hear. Sometimes you get on them and you can't hear what the heck they're saying, but you can, and it's improved dramatically in the last 2 years.
Well,
I would say
maybe,
that.
maybe to an extent, Representative Newton, you need to reach around and pat yourself on the back, because I think some of that's been based on the encouragement that you've.
Let's see if my camera catches
Yeah,
it.
see if you can't take some credit for encouraging us.
Yeah, that'll be the last.
Well, don't think it isn't going unnoticed, because it's really an asset.
We appreciate that, sir. I'll pass that on to IT.
Okay, I think we're ready. So, is there a motion on this, or did we have a motion already? I think we had a motion, did we not? But we haven't voted on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you moved it, and I believe Representative Harrington seconded that. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so all in favor, say
Do
aye.
we need roll call this?
Yeah, I asked that, and he
Oh, I'm
said no.
sorry. I didn't-
I thought this was on the first quarter, I thought that was on the first quarter budget report,
Yeah.
which is the last vote.
Yeah, that was the
Oh,
last one.
Last one there, motion to
That's
approve.
true.
Yeah, we need to, I think we have to,
For number 9.
What can I tell you?
yeah.
Anyway, so we have a motion by Representative Heath, is it seconded by
I'll second.
Representative Byrne? Thank you very much. So now, any further questions or observations, whatever? Representative Newton?
If we.
No, now we're voting on nine.
9.
Yeah. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that's unanimous. I agree with this morning. So item 10 at this point. Any other business which may legally come before the committee?
I think we
Right, Representative Horn.
skipped over item 5, although we did have some informal discussion, like who's here and who isn't. And
Item 4.
No, we did the roll.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay.
No, I did the roll.
I do actually have a question about the roll, because, you had said that it was 13 to,
Yeah, that was my mistake. It's 12-0.
okay,
It's 12.
so 12. 1, 2.
So we have 3 people missing.
10.
Yeah.
Representative Bixby's not here, Representative.
Well, where's the 12th? I have-
There.
There are 5 there and
Patrick is
7
not
here.
here.
Oh, okay.
And Representative Patriot not here, so there are 15 of us on the executive committee, 3 people are absent. Even my arithmetic is able to tell us that we should have 12 people here.
Okay,
And that's what we're all here except for those 3.
Okay.
but you don't vote, do you?
Yes, I do.
Sure, she's the clerk.
She's now together.
Oh, I didn't realize you
Doesn't say
voted.
for it.
When we pick the 15, then someone becomes the clerk.
We have 3 officers.
Oh.
Chair, Vice Chair Fitzpatrick, who's having a medical procedure this morning, not here, and the clerk is the third officer of the delegation.
Understood, I didn't
All
realize that.
elected by the delegation.
Just like
And
committees and
she's a voting member, she's a representative, and she's a voting member.
She only says
Just
it
like
loud.
just like the clerks in Concord are on the committees are voting members of the committee, right?
Yeah, she only needs to say it loud enough for herself to hear, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I can hear her say clerk bullshit. Right. So anyway, and I can assure you that on the votes we've had, she says, she doesn't say the clerk will check, she says, I vote yes.
Yeah.
And she has done that both times. We've done it. Yeah. Okay. Some other people have heard that. Confirm my report. Okay, so any other business may legally come before the committee? Representative Rich.
I was just wondering, why is domestic violence 0 rated for us? Is that not existing now, or?
It does exist, but we turned over its operation, to a different entity. We do still supply prosecution services for all the cities and towns on domestic violence. But we don't run, with the expiration of the grant, we no longer run it. But we do still provide prosecution as Emily will, as a county attorney, will tell you. But
I was just curious.
yeah,
That was
Who's been turned over
planned
to?
all along, right?
that was planned all along, sir, with the expiration of the grant.
Who is it turned over to?
County Attorney's Office.
But no, but I mean, what entity runs it, Kate?
It's not-
I mean, you do the prosecution, but what entity runs the Family Justice Center?
It's Haven.
Haven.
Oh, Haven, yes.
Yeah, Haven runs it. We turned it over to the Haven, but we still do the prosecution.
Good. Anything further on item 10? I thought, you had a question before the meeting began, but then you said something during the meeting that
Yeah,
resolved your issue, but I'm off.
No, I do have a few things to say, and I appreciate the indulgence of the delegation. You may have all,
We're only the executive committee, but.
the executive committee. You may or should have all got a letter from the Republican caucus on our position and the back and forth we've had happen with the nursing home.
Let me interrupt you for just a moment. Let's verify that everybody here got that letter. I got it. Anybody who did not see the letter from Representative Newton, Representative Burnham, Representative Turcott, and Representative Denson. Anybody here not get that? So proceed, please.
And actually it was representing the whole Republican caucus. At the end, it refers to 24/17 investigations. A few have been done by the counties, surrounding counties, and they've been done recently. This will be a finding of fact investigation. There's been 2 years with the nursing home, and the people need to know what the heck is going on with this nursing home. Now, what is good about this investigation, and you can find it, I've done research and I can provide it to you guys. The results of it will become part of the permanent record of the Strafford County Annual Report. As in the past of other places like Hillsborough County, I think Carroll County, and possibly Belknap County have had investigations recently under that 24/17. And that is the point of that. I want to take a personal privilege here and say, I've been publicly accused of being a saboteur of the rest home project. That is false. What I have done, and what most of you know I do, is I get original intent documents and I get them out when I find them. I get them out for debate and discussion, which has certainly occurred with everyone I've got out. I'm not a saboteur. I've also been accused of solely responsible for stopping the building committee, meetings. That is false. I can't do that. I'm only one member out of 5. I'm not the chairman of the delegation. I'm not the chairman of the building committee, so I can't be responsible for stopping the building committee meetings. But that's been said publicly, and I think it's been still.
May I just ask you, have you been accused by members of the executive committee, any of the officers?
No, I was accused by the commissioners of that. One of the, it's on the tape. Because I watched it the other day, it's on the tape. So, Strafford County has lost, which I just also recently found out, that 15.3 from Gopher's gone. It's gone. Now, it's gone. And the contract with them was breached when the site location changed and when the major project changed. And it was breached by those who signed the contract. That's what the contract, that's where the first big breach came in the contract, and we got a copy of a letter where, some of us, where it was discussed between Gopher and the county. And it was determined that the county probably can't get done in time what they need to get done to fulfill the contract. I have spoken with Gopher. Gopher's gonna provide me with all kinds of documents, whatever I want, which will come out during the investigation. Because a lot of what we're getting is he said, she said, and there's there's 2 very different stories. So we need to get to that too. And I think the people of Strafford County deserve to know and have a permanent record of who, what, and why the New Hampshire, the Strafford County Nursing Home Project has stalled. And additionally, why it's cost them more than $17 million to date. So I would ask that when this comes up for a vote, which will be soon, hopefully, everybody is in favor of a fact-finding investigation. And what the facts find, let those facts go where they may. But at least they'll be in the annual report of the county, as it is in Hillsborough, as it was in Carroll, and I believe Belknap County. I think there's 3 or 4 recent reports and investigations done by different counties. And I had Ann Bickford. Ann is just wonderful at legislative research. She provided that for me. In addition, she provided me with the history of 2417 and how it was changed a couple times, why it was changed. Initially, it started as just county commissioners, and it was changed to include not just county commissioners, but any executive or officer of the county. That was the big change in the law. So when that comes forward to the full delegation, I would ask that we get full support to move forward with a fact-finding investigation to make it a permanent record of what the heck happened and why it happened and how it happened. And that's what I had to say today. I thank you for giving me the couple minutes to say it.
Okay, well, I see.
I just wanted to correct 2 things that Representative Newton said, and then please,
Yeah.
one is the contract wasn't breached. If the site changed or the building changed, it would have been a simple amendment in front of the governor and council. And so I don't want to say it's breached, because breach means
I said
that,
it was breached.
I understand. I'm saying it's not.
Yeah.
And I am also asking if instead of having documents passed around, if there is going to be such a thing as a hearing, ask the people from Gopher to come. If you have a hearing, you have the right, who's ever conducting the hearing has the right to subpoena these people.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think a hearing is needless. Goodness knows enough stuff's been shared. But at the will of the delegation, if that's what's going to happen, if every member of the delegation votes, because remember, that's what the statute says, then ask the people from Gopher to come. The people that I spoke to and that our finance director spoke to and the commissioner spoke to weekly or every couple of weeks and then monthly, instead of letters back and forth. That's
Well, you're not next, Representative Southworth, and then.
Thank you. So we did receive a response from the commissioners, which is kind of the other side of the story. It had a lot of information in it. And I really, for me, feel like those are the two sides. So I don't really see, a point in a further investigation, because you can line up the two sides right now. You had your main points in what you all set out, and then they responded with, again, their information that they had. I feel like that's enough for me. So, it's just my opinion, but I feel like to go further really isn't a good use of people's time. That's just my.
That's good for you to take that position, but we just heard from Administrative Bauer that he'd like Gopher to be here.
That is what he said.
If there's gonna
If
be.
there's an investigation.
If there's gonna be an investigation.
And I'm just saying, I don't see that it's necessary.
And what I would say, Representative Kaczynski was at that meeting when I was at, we met with Gopher. Did you hear the contract was breached or didn't you?
That's what it sounded like.
So that's not what they told us. Just telling us.
Representative.
From what I remember talking about this in the Gopher funds that we had available, we chose as a delegation, there were some of you who said, we do not want to bond out this further, which is why we lost that $15.3 million. From what I understand, what you're talking about and what we've discussed is that we've broken the contract that we had with Gopher. What I was told, and what I believe, if I'm correct, was mentioned in front of the delegation by one of the Republicans, was that there was the ability for us to gain a waiver so that we could reclaim that $15.3 million. But that waiver has never come up. It's never been brought up again, and it's never been discussed further. So I don't really see the point in having an investigation, as we know why we do not have those funds.
So I attended the meeting in this very room, sat right over there, did not speak. That was a meeting called by the commissioners. It was their meeting. They sat right over there. I'm not sure, some of us were there, some were not there. But I was there, and I recall it very, very well. That there was public participation of the people lined up on seats right here. And I do recall and I believe it was Representative Potenza said, we need to request an extension. We can get them to extend the monies. The commissioner said, we've been told this is it. If we don't do this, X, Y, Z, the money will not be available. But and Representative Potenza, as I recall, said, but you haven't tried and you can try. And I believe you said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it was your understanding that an extension would be possible. So we said, well, let's try, because for sure we don't want to see the money go for lack of even asking for an extension. So I just wanted to inject that as a fact witness, having been here and not as somebody who spoke, but anyway.
Yeah, and I'd just like to follow up on that because, that came from, an executive counselor that told me that. So, and that's, yeah. So the executive counselor told me that we should be, it might not be dead and we should go after that. But the information that has come out and will be shared with, of course, the entire delegation is more so showing it's not about any of us here. It's about stopping this whole process. It shows a lack of communication from, unfortunately, with the commissioners and Gopher. And I think that's the piece that really, they pretty much thought the project was dead. It has nothing to do with me saying an extension and all that. I'm outside on the peripheral here. So that's what I mean. Like, we were just at this point realizing that it was an exorbitant project, which was just fiscally irresponsible for our taxpayers with what's going on right now. And that's the whole reason why that stuff started, because I don't want us to lose out on 15 million. I also didn't want us to spend upwards of almost $2 million without us all along the way being, having that authority. So there's a lot of different things in here, and I believe there should be a fact-finding thing. I think it's good for everyone. It's not a gotcha. We all have a fiduciary responsibility. So you have it to your constituents and I have it to mine. So this isn't, the letter that came out, and we're all pretty upset because at this point in time, we could literally have, in probably 3/4 of construction done of a new nursing home, okay? So that's how I'm looking at it. I haven't been on this, I'm new. So that's really what I think bothers me the most, is that we have literally, it was ignored, a bid for 48 million for a new nursing home, and we could have had that at this point. Yes, it
Well, we
is
got,
true.
I
Yes, it is
think you
true.
all, I hope you all got it. I saw it myself, and sure, probably did, that commissioners responded to the so-called bid, but I
I'll make sure
disagree.
to email that out to the
Disagree
entire
that this was a
delegation.
qualified bid. I was, I looked into it, but anyway, Representative Newton.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna say again, we've heard repeatedly here today, I heard this, somebody might have said that. There's no harm in having an investigation and get the people here to clarify the facts. There won't be a large expense unless we have people under oath and we have to transcript the statements under oath. It's not gonna, it can be, investigation can be up to 5 committee members. And whether or not they get paid their typical stipend, we all get paid for attending a meeting. So the cost isn't great, but I met with Gopher and I heard a bunch of things that are different from what we've heard. So you've got more than just the commissioners and us involved. You've got Gopher, who was the banker for 15.3 million, which is now gone. That money's gone. We need to let the taxpayers know exactly why it was gone with facts and not opinions. So nobody should be against getting facts unless facts don't matter. If they don't matter, then vote against it because facts don't matter. I think they do. I think that when you have original intent documents, you can't deny that they're not factual because they're documents. And the letter that I got, that was supposedly the discussion between Gopher and the county staff, had no signatures, it had no letterhead, it had nothing, it was just like this here. And when you, as representatives, when we get letters that are anonymous, we don't take a lot of salt in them because the people won't even say who wrote them. And I want original intent documents with letterheads, with source, so you can say, it isn't me making it up. It isn't me saying that the contract was breached because it was changed considerably, and that maybe or maybe not, Gopher wasn't even notified of the change until, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through the next year. That there needs to be people here we can ask that question to, and they can answer to us face to face. And that's what that investigation will do. And if you don't think the citizens of Strafford County deserve that, then vote against the investigation, but you suffer the consequences of what comes out as a
Point of
result.
order. I would appreciate it if you don't give me motives. We're not supposed to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you mean by
But
motives? I don't
You're
know.
saying I'm doing it, well, what you just said, you were giving me motives.
Oh, okay, I apologize. for
Yeah,
that.
you really shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't say.
I'm representing my constituents all day long here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
I mean, just as a final statement, if we want our constituents to know about why we lost out on $15.3 million, I encourage them to watch and read the minutes from the December 20th meeting, because right then and there, they can see exactly where and why we lost that $15.3 million. Thank you.
Representative Horton.
Well, putting people under oath, it may or may not be necessary, but certainly it's not illegal to disagree with me or any other member or to express a view that not everybody shares of what happened. But also, we've referred to Executive Councilor Kenny. My recollection is he's attended he sat in at least one, I think, of the executive council meeting. I think he was at that big meeting.
I think he was at the commissioners meeting, that's my
So
recollection.
he's attended a number of, come down.
And he's been here at the county, at the delegation meeting, at least once.
Yes.
So, but anyway, we haven't heard from the commissioners yet, so.
It's just simple. Representative, Executive Councilor Kenny did.
Yeah.
Everything that Kelly said is accurate in terms of what Executive Councilor Kenny said. The problem was the disconnect between Executive Councilor Kenny and Gopher administration themselves. Gopher administration told us if we did not have a bonded project, two things. Number one, if we didn't have a bonded project, okay, we had submitted to Gopher a schedule of construction so that we could draw down. Remember, this is a loan. The $15.3 million is a loan, okay? Wasn't an outright grant. We had to spend so much money during a certain portion of time in order to get the $15.3 million, okay? So it wasn't a grant. Grants are different. We had to spend so much money. We had to spend $46 million if my memory serves me correctly now, prior to December of 25. Okay?
I remember there was a definite time.
So because we weren't meeting, if we didn't have a bond for, they wanted two things. We had to have a bonded project and we had to expend so much money prior to December of
Exactly.
25.
Had to be already spent.
Okay, we had to spend the money ourselves and then they would reimburse us. That's how it worked. When we didn't get the bond, okay, then Gopher said, well, okay, you don't have a bonded project. This is the last step. When we came to you in December and said, if we don't get a bonded project, we're gonna lose the money. That's what they told us, okay? So we lost the money. I mean, it's not any more complicated than that because we had to spend it. We had to spend so much money in order to get it, okay? That was the problem. That was the issue. The other issue with it is that, and I'm not being critical of Gopher, but the federal law says that we had till December of 26 to spend the money. Now, let me tell you why Gopher put this well, it's not artificial, it was drop dead date.
Maybe arbitrary.
They picked December of 25, okay? Even though the federal law says we have till December of 26, they picked December of 25 because they wanted the ability, if we did not have a project, to reallocate that money to some other project somewhere in the state, which Joe Kenny told me directly that they already had a pile of projects all lined up, ready to spend the money on, okay? But they had to have time. Those projects just don't show up
They're
like.
under the same obligation, right?
They're under the same obligation to spend so much money, okay, by the time deadline. So that's what happened with the federal money, okay? And we had a bond for a project, and I don't care how we had changed it. I said to you guys 1,000 times, I didn't care what it looked like. I didn't care the size. I didn't care the dimensions. Didn't care anything about that. But I told you that 3 times, the delegation. But we had to act because as a result of what Gopher told us in terms of expending money. We had a construction schedule developed along that line so that we could also purchase large ticket items that would have been held in storage, okay? Like heating systems, like steel, like all those other things. So we could have spent the $46 million.
Right.
In time to draw down the 15.3, okay? So Gopher turned around when they put the artificial date of December of 25 on us. That's why we were under such tremendous strain to move as quickly as we had as possible, okay? Now, what they've done with the $15.3 million right now, we haven't been able to ascertain what they're doing with that. I can tell you, it's not going back to the taxpayers and it's not going to go back to the federal general fund. It's going to be spent on other projects somewhere in this state, okay?
As a matter of fact, I don't even know if the governor's made a decision on whether or not he wants to spend it even on nursing homes. We got a request to build municipal boat ramps. Okay? For $100,000, but it had to be a municipal ramp,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
okay? And they wanted it built in so much time. You gotta spend the money. You gotta have it, so nobody has plans sticking around for a boat ramp except for George Malaris, okay, my own marina. Yeah, Milton, right. So a lot of municipalities, shuffled like hell to figure out where they can put a boat ramp. And fishing game was gonna be in charge of it. So the point being is that Gopher established an artificial timeline with us because they wanted to reallocate the money and make sure the other people who got the money had the time to expend the money in order for them to get it.
That sounds like a reasonable idea. They didn't want the money to go.
They didn't want the money to be returned back to the federal government or used in some other state. Right. So that's it. That's what happened with the Gopher money. It's not any more complicated than that. So now that we're not chasing the Gopher money, is the time now for us to sit down and try to figure out if there's some compromise that we could reach in regards to the construction of a new nursing home moving forward. I'm hopeful that there will be some form of compromise. I sent a letter to the Republican caucus saying we're willing to do that. We just gotta figure out what it is you want, okay? We gotta figure that out, because now that we're not chasing the $15.3 million, because that's off the table. Now, during that whole debate, we heard we don't need the $3.3 million because we can reduce the size of the project, so on and so forth. I just want to make one statement if I can, I'm gonna sit down. Regarding EGA. This is simple math, folks. I want you to just grab a calculator right now and do the math, right? They said, they presented an estimate out of the construction summary report. Now, any of you guys know what the construction summary report is? If Representative Groom was here, he would know what it is, because that's what all the people in the construction business get a copy of the construction summary report once a month. It's an association of all the major projects that go on everywhere in this region. All the major construction companies go after or get a copy of the construction summary. It tells them about what's going on in the world, what bids may be coming out, what business they can go after. EGA took that figure of theirs, of the $48.6 million out of the construction summary. Okay? Now I want you to do the math here. It's very simple math. Grab a calculator. I can do it right now in my head for you. Okay? If you take our existing nursing home, the existing square footage of our nursing home, which is roughly around 135,000 square feet. Okay? If you multiply it by, anybody got a calculator over there? Just do it. Divide 350 into $48.6 million. You're gonna get a number around 138,000 square feet. Okay? Which is what the present size of our nursing home is. It's the size of what we already have. So, how do you go from having 2 people sharing a room and 4 people sharing a toilet and 42 sharing a shower, okay? And do all that within 138,000 square feet? It doesn't equate, okay? You can't do it. It's impossible. When I spoke directly to EGA, we had an interview process with all the architects. You will see, and there's a summary sheet regarding this. I thought we forwarded all the delegation, but if we haven't, we'll forward it to you all. In that summary sheet, there were 6 architects that bid that project. In that summary sheet, on the right-hand side, they said estimated cost of project. No one but EGA put a number in it. It was an estimated cost. Estimated cost. In their explanations, they said, well, we've made a lot of assumptions in this number. But what they simply did was they thought we wanted a simple replacement for what we have. 138,000 square foot nursing home. That is not, first of all, number one, it won't meet the CMS requirements. it has to be at least initially double that size, because you want people in single rooms, okay? So just do the math. All you gotta do is just do the math. When all this issue came up, I called EGA, the principals of EGA, and I said, we are being quoted up here as saying you can build this nursing home for $65 million. I said, I'll give you $75 million. Come up and sign the contract now. And he laughed at me on the phone. He goes, we don't build buildings. We design buildings. I said, well, you're being quoted as saying you can build this building. I said, I'm telling you, they're quoting you as saying you can build this building. He says, we don't build buildings, we design them. I says, well, that's what I thought. But I'm telling you right now, if you can build this building for $75 million, get your butt up here right now, and we'll sign the contract. The point being is that when you read EGA's explanations, they said, we've made multiple assumptions regarding what it is you want to see. The major assumption was a direct replacement for what we have. Why bother? Why bother? If you're gonna build a nursing home that's a direct replacement for what we have, why bother? It makes no sense, okay? It made absolutely no sense to the commission when we talked to them. And then during the interview process, and this is nothing to saying anything bad about EGA. Okay, they're a fine firm, I'm not saying anything bad about them. During the interview process, there were two parts to that process. The first process was a concept plan, and the second process was to design a facility. Okay? If you look at the comparative analysis, during our interview process, EGA said it was gonna cost $60,000 for the concept plan. They raised their price during the interview process to $75,000. During the interview process. When we asked them about the assumptions they were making, the assumptions were that we're gonna have a direct replacement for what we have. And that's not why we're here. First of all, it doesn't meet CMS regulations for a direct replacement for what we have. We have 215 beds, okay? We have a license for 215 beds. It's our plan to construct 215 beds. Well, they said, well, and during the interview process, they said, well, we're gonna raise our concept price to $75,000. This happened during the interview. Warren Street Architects, one of the other three architectural firms we had interviewed, stated to us, it's gonna cost you $60,000 for the concept plan. But if we get picked as the architect to draw the plan, we'll credit you the $60,000. So there's your investigation, okay? That's all you're gonna find out. There isn't any more smoking guns. As we wrote out the report, I'll give you a little more information than what's in the report, simply because there were things that went on in the interview process that I don't mind talking about, but those things are accurate. That's what took place. I don't mind sharing that with you because that's exactly what took place. That's what you're going to find out. Okay? There's nothing else more to find out. There is no way the county commissioners would support a direct replacement for what we have in terms of square footage because it can't be built. The feds will not pay their share of the cost. It won't meet CMS regulations. It won't meet State Department of Health and Human Service regulations. It won't meet fire marshal regulations, okay? There's been over a dozen consultants dealing with not only the design of the nursing home in its present form, but its location and its siting, okay? Dozens of consultants, wetlands consultants, archaeological consultants, indigenous people studies, the flight of the bumblebee and endangered species studies, all these things, okay, that we had to do. So the $1.9 million that was expended paid for all of that information, okay? Because you had to do it. It was required as part of the project. So you can have all the investigations you want. You're not going to learn any more than I have. In 40 years, I've never, ever lied to this delegation or this executive. In 40 years. That's what you're going to find out. we can find out any more than that, there's no smoking gun. We lost the money because we didn't have a bond project. It's as simple as that. It's not open, those are all the facts. And I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what Gopher's gonna do with that money. And we still don't know. We've been asking. What are you gonna do with it? We got a project up on the roof here that we got ARPA money for, that we're still doing. The ventilation on this system on this building, we spent over $3 million on, okay? We're asking them, is there any way the Strafford County can get some more of this money some other way for some other things that we have going on here? But they haven't answered what they're gonna do, how they're gonna reallocate it. I don't think the governor's made that decision yet. As to how he wants to reallocate that, the 15.3 million. Now, maybe he's hanging on to it, and hopefully maybe we can go back after it. But that artificial deadline they put on us, and it was artificial. Okay, was because they wanted to have time to spend the money.
Okay, so I thank George for giving his point of view on that.
Well, this is clearly something that the delegation would have to vote on, the whole delegation. We could talk to the cows come home, send people.
I think they already have.
Debate's always good, Mr. Chairman.
What'd you say, Michael?
I think the cows already have come out.
Right. Well, I'm just saying we could, but the whole delegation, I'm not sure if the statute said that every member of the delegation has to vote on this.
Correct.
We've got a problem, as you all know, and that is the Representative Jeffrey Rich has disappeared into thin air, as far as I know. I tried to reach him repeatedly. We have no idea where he is. Have no idea where.
Who was that?
Jeff Rich.
Representative Jeffrey Rich.
Summersworth, he hasn't been around for a long time. I haven't seen him
We
in
haven't.
2020.
I've reached out to him, left messages, asked questions, never had a response. So to the degree we have to have the vote of every representative, find me Jeffrey Rich and we can have that vote, but otherwise, that may seem like a technical issue of whether he's there to vote or not, but anyway, it's clearly something that the delegation is gonna have to vote on. So I do appreciate your laying out your case for,
Just information.
such an investigation. So I thank you all. And is there other further?
Following up on what you said, though, there isn't another delegation meeting for a long time.
Why?
Well,
Unless one's called.
I'm asking, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
can we call a meeting?
That's right. We'd have to have a delegation meeting.
And it's, do you have a sense of that or you need to sleep on it?
I definitely think I will want to confer.
Yeah.
Because there are three ways, as you know, that we can have a delegation meeting. One of them is for the commissioners to request that. That up to them whether they will make such a request. Then majority of the delegation can vote to have a special meeting. And the third way is that I can request the commissioners to set a meeting. And I certainly will want to confer. I think I'm going to confer with the county attorney for one thing about some of the aspects that have been raised here and so forth. But the one thing that I think would be beneficial if we don't have the debate in public, in the media, because I'm 86 years old. I've been in public life for more than a quarter of a century. I've talked with the press a lot, and I have to say, as much as they try to get it right, or maybe don't try to get it right, they don't always get it right. But if it's in the press, then it's taken to have some truth portion. So anyway, so I have read some things in the press. Some words have been used which I think are unfortunate. I think the word deception or deceit was one of those words that stuck in my mind, and that doesn't benefit. It doesn't benefit this delegation, and I don't think it benefits the people of Strafford County. Anyway, is there anything further that we have to confer on, act on today?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.